How many people have a leadership position in the room? How many people have a leadership position in the room? How many people have a leadership position in the room? Everybody put our hands up. Okay. If you don't believe that you're a leader, okay, you're never going to act like a leader. Can anybody let me know, what do you think the role of a leader is? To lead the team, okay. Anybody else? Sorry? In the right direction, okay. Anybody else? Tell me what the role of a leader is supposed to be. Lead by example, okay.
Find purpose and clarity.
Find purpose and clarity.
Bring out the best in the team.
Bring out the best.
Influence others.
To influence, okay. It's my favourite word in leadership. Anyone else? Before I give you the answer. The whole role of a leader is to build more leaders. That's it. The whole role of a leader is to build more leaders. Now, why do I want you to build more leaders? Why do you think the role of a leader is to build more leaders? Why would I want to do that?
One less person for you to manage.
One less person for me to manage. Okay.
So everyone can be a leader.
We want everybody to act like a leader. Okay. And you said manager. Okay. I can't manage people. I've never been able to manage. I mean, Ian used to work with me and for me, but I could never manage Ian. All right? We manage ourselves. We have a position, we have a role, and we have responsibility, and we're accepted into an organisation or a business, and we're expected to do that role or responsibility. Would that be a fair comment? So, do you get managed? Or do you get given a task or a duty or a responsibility and held accountability to do a certain aspect of what the job entitles? But nobody comes along and holds your hand while you're doing it? Nobody looks over your shoulder unless they're a micromanager? So in my world, I can't manage people, and I've never been able to manage people. Managers manage a process. Leaders lead people. And there is a fundamental difference between leading and managing. Now, the terminology of leadership it's a real buzz at the moment. A real buzz. Everybody wants to put leadership on the end of something. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't really understand the terminology of leadership. Right? We need to go into an area of what I call leader shift. So we have to shift from managing people or trying to manage people and move into an area of leading people. And tonight what we're going to talk about is emotional intelligence. So if I said what the role of a leader was to lead people, what do you think the purpose of a leader is then? You can guess. Understand them, yes, okay, yeah. There's not going to be a wrong answer here, right? This is not a quiz, this is not an exam. There are no wrong answers. But I want to challenge you on how you think. My role as a thought leader is to challenge the way you think. Because if I don't challenge you, what are you going to learn? Very little. So what do you think the purpose of a leader is? If the role is to build more leaders, what's the purpose?
To put them in scenarios where they can excel themselves.
Okay, you're an engineer, aren't you? Okay. I'm not having a go because that's how an engineer thinks. I'll keep it real simple. Right? The purpose of a leader is to add value to people. Leadership is not complicated. Leadership is very, very, very simple. We complicate it because we tend to think too much. So my role tonight is to build more leaders. My mission, as Ian said in my introduction, is I have a positive influence in people's lives. That's why I get out of bed. My vision is to have add value to leaders who multiply value to many. So they're the two reasons why I'm out of bed long before the alarm goes off and why I'm very, very late in bed of a night time because I'm reading and I'm researching. So if I'm adding value to people, how do I do that? How do you think I add value to people? I educate them? Yeah, I do. I do. There's, we're going to give this a go. Oh my God. Let's go smaller. And it's 3. Okay. I'm going to, the 3 times E's of leadership. These are the 3 things leaders should do every single day. Right? So if I've got to build up more leaders, if I've got to add value to people, I can only do it one way. The first one is I have to engage with people, don't I? If I don't come out of my office and if I'm just that person that sits in a positional hierarchy and I only come out to bark orders, I don't really engage with people. The second thing a leader has to do is they have to encourage. The third thing a leader has to do they have to empower. Does anybody want to make a comment on any of these 3? Any thoughts? Go on, you can say something. If I engage with people, if I encourage people, if I'm empowering people, what am I doing? I'm doing one thing, and it's the key to leadership. It starts with C and ends in communication. That's the secret to leadership. That's the secret to relationships. That's the secret to success. If you want to be a successful person in your business, communicate more. And if you communicate more, communicate through engagement, communicate through encouragement, communicate through empowerment. Now, who are you going to do that to? Who would you do that to? Everyone. Every single person that you meet, you have to engage, you have to encourage, and you have to empower. All right? Now, this is easy for me to say because I've been doing this most of my life. But this is really hard to remember. Can you take one and one pen and pass them along? Could you take one and also grab a pen and pass it along? I don't know how many pens are there, so. Now, the reason why I bring my own pens is because sometimes people don't bring a pen. So I've just got into the habit, I just bring a pen for everybody. You can use it, you can don't use it, you leave it, it doesn't matter. You can keep it, it's your pen. It's your pen. Let me know if there's enough pens to go around. Everybody got a pen? Okay. Now, tonight we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence. And you're probably thinking, well, what's that got to do with engagement, encouragement, and empowerment? So before you get too much involved into your booklet, if you could just close it for 30 more seconds. Can you, somebody, now it doesn't matter who, everybody, doesn't matter. Can anybody tell me what they believe emotional intelligence is all about?
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness?
And awareness of others.
Okay.
Understanding empathy
Mm.
and other behavioural patterns.
Yeah.
Triggers, anger.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Anybody else have an interpretation of emotional intelligence?
How your actions are perceived by others.
Yes. Yeah.
You might think you're demonstrating a certain quality, but it might not be how it's perceived. And
Exactly right.
Effect on that person.
Yeah.
Their ability to.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Understanding other people's perspectives on things, therefore you know how to engage or communicate with them more effectively because you know what
absolutely. So if we look at the booklet now, don't worry about the first page. That's just a intro. But what is emotional intelligence? It refers to the ability to identify and manage one's own emotions as well as the emotions of others. People with a high degree of emotional intelligence know what they're feeling, what their emotions mean, and how these emotions can affect other people. If I'm not emotionally aware of who I am as a leader, what do you think the results are going to be with my team?
Lack of confidence.
Lack of confidence, okay. In what respect? Just because I don't have emotional intelligence.
But if you're not aware of your own intelligence or
Yes.
your own ability to portray things, then you're not portraying that to your team.
I can't portray what I don't understand. Exactly. Tim?
Yes.
Tim. What we're going to cover a few things tonight, but if I'm aware of who I am, now I don't mean a man 57 years old standing in the room talking to a group of people, but that's exactly what I mean. Right? I have to be aware of what I'm saying to you. I have to be aware of my tonage, my body language, my eye contact, my hand movements, your responses, my responses to your responses is all about emotional intelligence. Because if I'm a leader in an organisation or a group and I'm not aware of that, what do you think the effect will be on the team towards my leadership? It's eroded, or it doesn't even get to a first area of growth. See, when you look at the vision of what a person's trying to do for an organisation, people don't buy into the vision of an organisation. What do they buy into? The person leading it, right? So you can't buy into the vision of anything until you buy into the vision of the person selling it. It's the same in sales, right? We don't sell products or services. What do we sell? You sell. If somebody doesn't like you, know you, or trust you, do you think they're going to buy from you? Now you can sell a commodity, no problem at all, and all you're doing now is going through a transaction. But if you want to be relational and have an effect on another person, you have to understand the relationship, the dynamics, the dichotomy between one and two people, even one and many people. Now, as a leader, do I treat everybody the same? No? Why not?
Well, different people have different emotions at different times of the day.
100%. And there are some people, when I'm with a group of people, and I'm not talking about you people because you're all future leaders, but when I'm with a group of people or I'm working with a group of people, there'll be ducks in the room and there'll be eagles in the room. Now, I can't treat the ducks like I treat the eagles, and I can't treat the eagles like I treat the ducks. Why not? You're no. Exactly what you said before. We all have a different emotional requirement as to what we're seeking. A duck's emotional requirement is very different than an eagle's emotional requirement. Does that make sense? So when you're understanding emotional intelligence, when you're understanding other people, as a leader, someone said to me before, your name? Sam. Sam said the definition of leadership was influence. All right? And that's what the definition of leadership is. Influence. Nothing more and nothing less. It's just influence. But if it's not positive influence, what is it? It's negative, or it's dictatorship. Okay? It's management. Now, I can say management, and I have no problems with saying management, because I've spent most of my career moving away from management into leadership. Because management is around managing a process from A to B over a certain period of time with an expected outcome that I can be measured against. Does that make sense? So how do I measure leadership? Number of followers. That's it. If I get up and say, listen guys, let's go for a walk around the block, I think it's a great night for it, and I get up and I go for a walk around the block, and I turn around and nobody's following me, then I'm just an idiot going for a walk. But if one person decides, well, that's not a bad idea, I think I might follow him, who makes me the leader? The follower. So as a leader can't position themselves as a leader. No leader can position themselves as a leader if they have no followers. And you may be thinking, well, what's this got to do with emotional intelligence? Everything. How you think about yourself, how you think about your environment, how you think about your team, how you impact your team, how you influence your team is all about emotional intelligence. Because if I'm self-aware of what I'm doing in my life, I also should be self-aware of the people around me, which is empathy. Does that make sense? So there's 4 main characteristics to understand around self-awareness. In the little blue diagram there, you've got, in the top left-hand corner, you've got self-awareness, all right? And this is all about emotional intelligence. And you have to ask yourself your question, how am I today? How am I going? The second one you look at is self-management. How am I managing? Now, it doesn't mean how am I managing somebody else. It means how am I managing myself? Do I get enough sleep? Have I got a good work-life balance? Am I aware of what's happening when I'm doing certain aspects? That's all about self-management. How long do I do it for? Why do I do it? Is it a criteria? Is it critical? Is it important for my health, for my mental stability, for my future? This is all about self-management. The second area you have to look at is the social aspect. How well am I socially aware? Am I aware of what others are happening in their life? So if I'm in a social setting, in a social atmosphere, am I aware of what's happening with my friends? Am I curious? Am I asking the right questions? Or am I saying, oh, don't worry about her, she's always pictured, and just walk away and ignore it? Or what are my social skills or my relationship management? What is that like? Do I have social skills? Now, we all know people that are very socially inept. They're like a square peg in a round hole when they're in a social atmosphere, until you get them in their comfort zone. And when they're in their comfort zone, they're quite happy to have a great conversation with 1, maybe 2 people. And then you get other people who are quite extroverted, like myself, who will talk to a lampshade and probably get an answer, right? Because I don't have any problems talking with anybody, but that's my extroverted personality. But we're not all extroverts and we're not all introverts, but we are a combination of extroversion and introversion. And some of us are quite strong in our personality, some of us are quite meek in our personality. Some of us are very structured and detailed in our personality, and some of us are very flighty and out there with the pixies with our personality. And this also has an effect on our level of understanding for emotional intelligence. So what do you think your personality, what effect do you think your personality has on emotional intelligence?
It's not a hypothetical question.
Go on. Yeah.
A huge amount, because if you, for example, a lot of introverted people in a period of introversion will, although they're very quiet, they're actually looking outward to assess what other people are doing. So at that time, when you see someone like that being quiet in a social situation, they're spending a lot of time taking the room in. How are other people relating? So they're ticking off some of these boxes at that time.
In your environment, and this is where I want to draw on your experience right now. In your environment, give me some examples where you've been aware of emotional intelligence. Now, this is a difficult question because you haven't been asked this many times in your life.
I mean, it's anything with body language to what you're saying is changing.
So the body language changes.
So then you need to adapt or pull back from what you're saying because it's not going down the way you wanted it to.
Okay, so now you're being aware of a social environment. Okay, what you're saying, how you're saying it, may have a detrimental effect. So, your name? Jared. So Jared leads back and he goes, no, I've had enough of this idiot. So I'm just going to pull back for a while and wait till he shuts up. And when he says something interesting, I'm going to sit forward again. I'm not having a go at Jared. Jared's just comfortable. I know body language, and I'm not having a go at Jared. But what happens in your environment when people become uncomfortable because of emotional intelligence? What do you do? Give me some of your examples where you may have noticed something. Now, the reason why I'm going to be drawing on this is because if you can draw on your own examples, you will learn 10 times quicker than just hearing it from me. Aaron?
So in my task, like if we've had an incident management, so certain people react different ways, so kind of understanding the environment and their behaviour.
Exactly.
You know, to when we're investigating or how we then engage the guys. Like some guys like to go into a private room to have the discussion. Other guys will talk to people about it.
Yep.
So, just reflecting on the person's personality and how they are kind of assists in what you get out. So.
You'll have some people who their personality will just ignore it. Oh, they're idiots. They're just sooks. Don't worry about them. Just ignore them. We need to get this work done. Don't worry about them. They'll be right. I'll go and kick them in the arse later. What do you do in those scenarios? Now, I know what the most of us will do, but what do you do in those scenarios when somebody talks it down?
Try and get them engaged and trying to maybe get them to see why those people are like that.
Do you think you'll win? Let's say we talk about a very strong personality. Now, have you done personalities? No. Well, I'm not going to go into too much, but I need to explain to you a little bit about it. Now, there are 4 personalities. There's not 16 like Myers-Briggs tells you. There's only 4. Now, I could also use... I could also use this one. Oh, that's way too much info for me. Okay, so here, the ones with the circle, some of you may have done a disc profile in the past. Okay. Disc profile and what I use as Personality Plus is Florence Littauer. It's the same thing. It's just that these personalities came from Hippocrates. And then in 290 AD, a physician called Galen actually gave them these 4 terminologies. And we still use these terminologies today. But in the 60s and 70s, the psychologists got together and they wanted to rebrand it through DISC, and then we had Myers-Briggs, and then we have a horse and a cat and a bird and a dog and all these other terminologies. They're just different psychologists giving themselves their own little brand name. I like using the original. So choleric, sanguine, melancholic and phlegmatic. Now the top 2 are extroverts, the bottom 2 are introverts. These people over here love people. These people over here love task. Now when I'm looking at personality, the first thing I'm looking for, are they extroverts or introverts? What's my personality? Extrovert. Now the next thing I want to look at, are they a people person or a task-focused person? What am I, people or task? People. So now you've narrowed it down. I'm an extrovert and I love people. So what do you think one of my personalities are? I have a driver and a supporter, a primary and a secondary, and the other 2 just are there to support me in my life. So what do you think my primary is? The S? Okay. A lot of people think it is, but it's actually the C. I'm a CS. I'm a choleric sanguine or a DI. Now that personality, the D, they're very dominant in their personality. Now you know this personality. They're always right, and everybody else is always wrong. And they'll tell you they're always right. They'll tell you that I'm right, you're wrong. I'm big, you're little. I'm the boss, you're not. Right? They can be very, very demonstrative. They take no prisoners. They'll walk into a room and they walk out and they wonder why all the dead people are still on the carpet. Right? They're like the bull in the china shop. But a lot of these high D choleric personalities become managing directors, presidents, managers. Okay, they have a very strong will, determination to win and will. The S is the village idiot. They're the clowns. They love parties. They've got a story about everything. They've got a joke about everyone. They just love people. So yes, I'm a DI. But I've spent the last 15 years understanding my self-awareness. So every day I do a self-awareness program. I do 5 things every single day to understand my personality, to understand so I don't be a pain in the ass anymore, to understand that I'm not overbearing someone who's introverted. But that's just my story. Now down the bottom here we have an M or a C. Now the M, they're a very structured, detailed person, and we have quite a few M's in the room today. They'll have sticky notes on their computer screen, right? They love sticky notes. Don't we love sticky notes? Absolutely, we love sticky notes. And you can normally tell a melancholy because the way they dress, the way they hold themselves, and the way that they ask questions. Now, I can easily say this because, as I said, I've spent many, many years studying this. And the last person is the phlegmatic. They're the peacekeepers. That's my son. I said, what about mowing the lawn, mate? Oh, we can do it tomorrow, Dad. I'll do it later. It's not going anywhere. The dog's still there. I saw his tail. So you're not going to rush a phlegmatic to do anything. So knowing my personality and knowing other people's personalities, I can understand how they're going to affect emotional intelligence. Now, as Aaron was saying, when you have an accident, when you have an incident, you have to be quite mindful of the people around you. If you know personalities, it's 10 times easier. It's 10 times quicker to read personalities. Now, I know Aaron's quite a strong personality, and I'm only met him for very, very quickly, but I'm hesitating to guess that Aaron is a CM, right? A strong personality, quite structured in detail, but Aaron can also react very, very quickly if he needs to, and he can get things done when he wants to. And when an incident happens, someone like Aaron will take charge. And also make sure everything's okay. Right? Make sure everybody is doing the right thing. This personality over here, they're going to make sure everybody is not too serious. And they're going to have a bit of fun with it, but make sure everybody's safe. The people down here are taking roll call to make sure everybody's on the list. And everybody here in the phlegmatics is making sure that it's just peace and calm. We don't need to panic. But what's that got to do with emotional intelligence? What do you think my personality has to do with emotional intelligence?
I suppose it just depends on your standpoint as to how you go about approach and what role you're in your emotional intelligence to read the other quantities, I suppose, and when you move from one to the other.
But does, remember, this is my driver, it's my supporter, and the other two are there. I'm born with my personality. I was born CS, and I'll die CS. Everybody is born with a primary and a secondary that drives them and supports them, and the other two are there are just to hold them up. Now, I had to learn this skill so I could write programs, I could print programs, I could have structure around a business. But that's a learnt skill. If I never had a mobile phone or a computer, I'd be so happy because they drive me crazy. But they hold me to account. So that's not my personality. I'm a people person. So my personality, and it doesn't matter where my personality lies, I have to have a level of understanding towards my emotional intelligence. My son, he's a phlegmatic sanguine, all right? Now he's a very introverted person, but he's extremely funny because they're a very witty personality. But he knows his personality and he knows his level of emotional intelligence because he's been brought up and he's listened to me so many times. So he knows, even though he's a peaceful type of person, he reads people and he knows what's going on. And that's the sign of a good leader. A good leader is always reading people. A good leader, what's the role of a leader? To build more leaders. That's the role. And what's the purpose? I'm sure to add value. I like the way you all wrote this down. It's fantastic. So to add value is the purpose. Okay, and what's the overall responsibility of of the leader? How does he do all this? Engage, encourage, empower through communication. Exactly right. So if I don't know what someone's emotional position is, how can I lead them? Go on, tell me. You can't. You can't. What happens is we go back to our default management style. Does that make sense? I want you to get out of your mind, I really want you to get out of your mind, the mindset that you're a manager. I really, really do. I don't care what your business card says, right? I really don't care what your business card says. I care what you think of who you are. If you believe that you're a leader, right? What comes out of your mouth? What's the conversation that you want to have with people?
I guess just what revolves around, what drives them, what they feel, how you can, I guess, empower them or encourage them to do other things.
I'm going to try this. Oh, here we go. So, the leader's role is to build more leaders. The leader's purpose is to add value. And the 3 R's of a leadership, okay, the 3 E's, are to engage, encourage and empower through communication. Now, if I look at my personal competence on page 4, personal competence comprises your self-awareness and self-management skills, which focus more on the individual than on your interactions with other people. So what am I saying here? It comprises my self-awareness and my self-management skills, which focuses more on the individual than on your interactions with other people. So what am I talking about?
Just yourself.
That's it. I'm only talking about myself. I have to look at how competent I am as a leader. Not the skill of a manager. I'm looking at the competence of me as a person. So if somebody had an accident at work, if somebody was in a negative environment, how would I handle that? Now, through my career and my life in different aspects and different businesses, I've come across quite a few different scenarios. I've come across a death, I've come across amputations, I've come across critical injuries, and I've always been in a leadership role. And it's very, very funny when you go through the scenario and you step back after it's finished and you self-reflect on what you did. What do you normally do? Well, this is how I reacted, but what do you think would normally happen when you self-reflect on a environment that wasn't that good, that wasn't that favourable for another person? You analyse it. You critically analyse yourself. All right? But sometimes that's too late because the horse has already bolted. And the whole point of self-awareness, the whole point of personal competence is, what if something happened? What will I do? So in my years coaching, practicing, learning, developing leadership, at the end of each program, even tonight when I go home tonight, I will self-reflect on these 2 hours on everything that happened. And what do you think I'll take from it? What can I improve on next time? What can I learn? Because if I don't do that, and I've got this same program to do next week, I could say or do the same thing, which wasn't as good as it should have been. Does that make sense? So as a leader, I've always got to be, what's my level of competence in this area? Am I a good communicator? Do I understand Michelle's problem? She's come into my office and she said, Bernie, I've really got something to talk to you about. And I say, Michelle, really, I just don't have the time today. I really don't have the time. Right? And Michelle turns around and said, oh, okay, bye. And Michelle walks away. And then, I'm not saying anything's going to happen with Michelle, but me as a leader, okay, I'm negligent of my responsibility. What should I have done?
Listen.
Absolutely. I should have stopped everything. Because Michelle's come to me as the leader of the group or the team or the organisation, and she has a problem. Now, whether it's personally or whether it's fundamental to the organisation, it doesn't matter. I have to add value every time I have a conversation or every time I'm with Michelle. I have to add value to her life. Now people say to me, Bernie, that's got to be exhausting. How many people would think that that's pretty exhausting? If all I've got to do, your name? Scott. Every time I'm with Scott, Scott knows I'm going to add value to Scott. He doesn't know how today, but he knows I'm going to add value. All right? I remember one lady, I did a group, and she was probably 8.5 months pregnant, and she was sitting right here. And her breathing was getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and I'm thinking, oh my God, she's going to have a baby. And I said, oh, what's the matter? She says, I'm getting so tired watching you. And I said, what do you mean? She says, you're making me exhausted. And I said, why? She said, you're using too much energy. And I said, well, is that really? She said, I'm really getting tired watching you. She said, I'm going to have to go and lay down soon. And I thought, my God, it's really draining her because she was putting herself in my position. Now that is a sign of emotional intelligence. You put yourself in someone else's shoes. But she was doing it almost literally. And in the end, I had a break and she had a cup of tea and she was right. But the problem is, the amount of energy you have as a leader should never, ever wane. Ever. I am a high energy person, I'll give you that. I have no problem saying how much energy I have. Ian's known me for years. He's never known me any different. But I chose many, many years ago that today I'd have a high energy. I'd be positive, I'd be optimistic. I would add value to everybody that I spoke to. Now, if I don't do that and Scott sees me in 12 months or 18 months and he says, how you going, Bernie? I go, oh, you're not going to believe it. It's the worst day of my life. Scott's going to go, well, he told me 18 months ago. He never changes his attitude. He never changes his focus. So I can't do that. So I have to be the same person. But that's just my choice. Does that make sense? So,
Sorry, can I?
yes, please, Tim.
What if you are having a bad day?
Well,
Are you putting up
I'll tell you. I'll tell you what happened to me. A couple of when are we? Only a month ago. Actually, the 19th of March. My mum passed away on the 25th of January this year. She was 92. Her and Dad had just celebrated their 73rd wedding anniversary, and she'd had diabetes for a number of months or a number of years, and she didn't want to go into a home, but she had to go into a home, and she slowly passed away over a period of months. And we said goodbye to her on Australia Day. Now, remember, I'm one of 13 children, and we were all there, and we all had a great time, and we celebrated Mum's, passing as a celebration. And then we all kind of looked at each other and said, well, I wonder how long Dad's going to hang around now. Because Dad always told us, if your mother goes, I'm going with her. I'm not going to hang around. He said, I'm not going to put up with you lot. So Mum passed on the 26th of January, Dad passed on the 18th of March, and it was a Monday afternoon. So one of my sisters and I were at the hospital, and it just looked like he was asleep. So, I said my goodbyes there, and the very next morning, I had a group just like this, where I was coaching another leadership program, where I'd been doing it over 3 months, so every week for 3 months. And this was week 9. Yeah, week 9. So we started at 8 o'clock and we finished at 11, and my energy was exactly like it is now. So at the end of it, and I'll ask the same question of you when we finished, what was your takeaway? And everybody told me their takeaway. And then one of the guys said to me, well, Bernie, what's your takeaway from today? And I said, this is going to sound funny. I said, but my level of adversity is higher than I ever thought it was possible. And he said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, my father passed away last night. And it wasn't until I got into that mindset that it started to affect me emotionally. All right? And the reaction was very much like your reaction, and I wasn't chasing sympathy. I'm not here looking for a sympathy card. It was just the reality that I had a responsibility as a leader to do something. It doesn't matter what happens to me. It matters what happens within me. And a leader always builds more from the inside than they do on the outside. So my daily rule of 5 is I do 5 things every single day to build myself up on the inside. And I don't mind sharing that with you. I read books every single day. And I have one of my favourite books here today that I'm going to give to somebody at the end of this session. I don't know who it is yet, but you'll tell me who it is, because I'm an energy person, and that person will identify themselves. But I read material every single day for at least an hour, sometimes 2 hours. I listen to audios every single day. I don't listen to the radio, I don't watch the news, I listen to audios. Speakers, motivational speakers. I don't listen to Tony Robbins, okay? I don't connect with Tony Robbins. I have a whole list of other speakers, and that author is he is my personal mentor in life. I've met him, I've done a program with him. His name's John C. Maxwell, and I listen to him every single day, as well as other authors. I write material every day. Now, someone was asking me, what did I do this morning? Who was it? Aaron. And I said I was writing 4 or 5 hours just material. I'm writing a new book at the moment, and that book is turning into a program. So I spent 4 or 5 hours today just writing material on leadership. I only communicate in a positive way, and I only associate with positive people. So they're the 5, that's my rule of 5 that I do every single day. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm asking you to do that in any way, shape or form. That's just what I do. That's my self-awareness program that I started almost 15 years ago. Now, my level of self-awareness is based on what I can do for another person. So if I sit with Scott, and Scott comes and has a cup of coffee with me, I know for a fact that Scott's going to feel better after meeting me than before he met me. Does that make sense? That's how confident I am in what I can do for you. Now, that's not ego, because ego, I'd be worried what you thought of me. Confidence is an inside confidence or an inside impression of what I think I can achieve. Ego is what you think I can achieve. But I have no control of that, so I don't worry about that. So for me, I've got to park my ego at the door. And remember, this personality, okay, we have a big ego. 15 years ago, I had a shocking ego. I was living in China, I was running an organisation, I had, honestly, 127 salesmen working for me. It was just ridiculous. I was travelling all around the world. And yet, did I have an ego? Yeah. And then it was taken all away from me. And I don't mind sharing what happened to me, because I generated quite a lot of money working overseas. And I had $1.4 million invested, because they used to give us local Chinese money to live off, and my international salary went into an account. I sold our house because we weren't coming back to Australia. I was going to work around the world. And my eldest daughter, she was turning 18. She wanted to come home to Australia University, so she'd come back. And the moment my eldest daughter left, that was it for me. I said, I've had enough. It was the beginning of 10 years. The company moved the goalposts. Everything was going pear-shaped. And I said, no, I've got to get out of here now. By the June, when I'm moving my wife and kids back home, the investment had a red flag on it. So I rang the FBI in America. And people say, you rang the FBI? Yeah, I rang the FBI in America. And they said, what's your concerns? And I told them about the company who I'd invested the money with. And a few hours later, they rang back and they said, well, Mr. Garrett, have you got any other funds? And I said, no. And they said, well, you're going to have to start again because all that's gone. So we lost everything. So my ego was well and truly kicked in the guts. And here I was thinking that I was an international manager, not a leader, manager. That was my mindset. Making a big difference to the world, travelling around the world, rah, rah, rah. And then all of a sudden, it's all gone. So it's what I call a defining moment in my life. So when I came home, well, that was on a Friday night. You can only imagine the upsetting conversation that went on over the weekend with my wife. On the Monday, I woke up and said, bugger it, it's only money, I'll start again. Now that was it. It took me 3 days to get over it. Now my wife still hates this story because she's still getting over it, right? And I don't have a problem with that because that's her journey, that's her story. But I can't change what's happened, but I can, it didn't matter what happened to me, but it mattered what happened within me and how I reacted to it. And the point I'm trying to make here is another little diagram I'm going to share with you. Can I clear this? Does anybody want this? All good? And this is going to help you understand about your emotional intelligence. Out here, we get results. Now, I gave you a pen and paper. Scribble your heart away. For me to put a full program together, I can do this for 8 hours, this one program. But I've got to condense it for you. So if I draw something on the board, scribble it down. Righto? These are results. What are the results? When do we get results? At the end of something. Righto. What helps us get results? Kind of. But I'm looking at it more from a personal perspective. Would you agree that our behaviour generates results? You ever seen a 5-year-old chuck a tantrum? Seen the results they get? Sometimes they're positive, sometimes they're negative. But my results today or tonight will be a clear action of what my behaviour and action steps are. Does that make sense? What drives my behaviour? What alters my behaviour? What affects my behaviour? Kind of. Starts with A.
Action.
So close, Tim. Attitude. So what affects my attitude? Well, before I get there, how many people were affected by somebody and their attitude over the last week? How many people were affected with their attitude over the last week? Most people, almost everybody. Even Ian at the back there. Can I share something with you? The only person that can affect your attitude is you and nobody else. How I think controls my attitude. So if I get up of a morning and I cut myself shaving, I spill coffee on my shirt, and I reverse out the driveway and hit the letterbox, and I say, this is going to be the worst day of the world. All right? Well, now that I've told the universe, I've got to live up to this. And the first person I see, I've got to share this with you. You're not going to believe what happened to me today. And I just go down and I just start vomiting, and my negative persona, my negative behaviour will generate more negativity. Or I could have cut myself shaving, put a bit of toilet paper on it, I could have spilled coffee, changed my shirt, and I could have watched what I was doing when I reversed out of the driveway. Or I could have hit the mailbox and said, I want to get a new one anyway. And then off I go to work, all right? And that's my mental attitude. So my attitude is going to affect my behaviour. So when I woke up this morning at 5:30, I had 2 meetings today. One with a lawyer or solicitor over my father's estate, because I'm the executor, and the second one was you guys. So at 5:30, I'm thinking about what I'm going to be talking about with you guys this morning, because that's my preparation. I'm setting myself an expectation of what I'm going to achieve today. How will my attitude affect you? What will my behaviour be like? What will you see? What will you feel? What will be the impact? And what will be the results? That's emotional intelligence. Because I'm mindful of what I'm going to say to you now. And I'm mindful of your reactions. Is this making sense to you? So self-awareness is what I see If you're self-aware, you always know how you feel, you know how your emotions and your actions can affect the people around you. Being self-aware means having a clear picture of your strengths and weaknesses, and it means behaving with humility. So after I come home from living overseas and we'd lost everything, I just put a plan in place to rebuild. And I'm still rebuilding. I'm a lot further I am today than I was 15 years ago. And I'm really enjoying what I'm doing today. But 15 years ago, I didn't know I'd be here talking to you tonight. But because of what I did, because of what happened in my life 15 years ago, it's because that's what put me in the room here tonight. Does that make sense? Because I lost everything, that put me on a different path. And all the decisions, all the input, all the association, all my learning, skills and knowledge have put me in front of you here tonight. Now, where will I be in 15 years' time? God only knows. But I'm going to have fun doing it. And I'm going to add value to people along the way. I'm going to coach and mentor leaders to build more leaders. I'm going to encourage leaders to understand their purpose is just to add value. All right? And the only way to do that is through communication and your three E's. So, if one of my things is self-awareness of what I see, self-management then is what I do. People who can self-manage themselves effectively rarely verbally attack others, make rushed or emotional decisions, stereotype people, or compromise their values. Self-management is all about staying in control. Now, how many of us have lost control? How many of us have, thrown the baby out with the bathwater at work and, you want to kill the boss, you want to kill everybody around you? Don't come near me for 4 hours. How many of us, I've done it in the past, of course I have. All right? How do you feel after it? Now, if you're a choleric, you go, I needed a good kick in the ass. If you're a melancholy, you go, oh, I shouldn't have said that. If you're a phleg, I didn't say that. And if you're a sanguine, well, I was just having a joke anyway. All right? So we've always got to reflect on what's happened in our life. But if we're not self-aware, you will fly off the handle. Absolutely. I cannot remember the last argument I've had. Now, my wife and I have been together for 36 years next week. I remember, she never remembers, but I remember. And we've got 3 beautiful grown-up children, and I've got my third grandson, my second grandson, my third child will be born hopefully this weekend or sometime next weekend. Now, I can't remember the last argument I had with my wife either. I can 15 years before that. But when we lost everything changed for me. My personality didn't change, but my understanding of what I needed to do in my life changed. Does that make sense? Who I was changed. So here I was thinking I was this great manager, this great leader of the organisation, travelling around the world, flying to Sweden, having all these big meetings. And then I'm left with nothing. And then you come home and everybody says, oh, you must be so lucky, you must be so rich with all that. Absolutely. I'm rich all right. Rich in love. But that was about it. So for me, it never affected me. Well, it did for 3 days. And then I got over it. When I understood what leadership actually meant to me, then I understood how I can actually become a leader. Because it was never about me as a leader. It was always about the person I could add value to. So my wife is a Melly Flegg MP. So she's an introvert, but very structured. She puts sticky notes on her computer screen as well. Right. And I'm probably the most motivated, inspirational, optimistic person she knows. But I'm always, on a constant basis, having to build her up. 36 years, actually for 42 years now I've known her since we were 10 years old. Her older sister married one of my older brothers. And yes, you can hear banjos every now and then. But the thing is that we've known each other ever since we were kids. And when I saw her again before I turned 18, this is going to sound really corny. instantly fell in love. Instantly. I was there with another girl at the club. I don't know what happened to her, and I took my potential future wife home with me. Well, I took her home to her place because her mother knew me. And I walked in and she said, "What are you doing here, Bernard?" And I said, "I'm bringing Ruth home." "Don't you think you're going to start taking my daughter out?" She said, "I'm not having 2 Garretts. Welcome to the family." So for me, it was all about, and this is going to sound really funny. Coming from a very devout Catholic family growing up, Mum taught me 3 things growing up as a kid. She said, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. Right? The other thing Mum used to say to me was that it doesn't matter, if you help enough people get what they want in life, you'll always get what you want in life. And the other thing Mum used to say to me was that do unto others as if you'd have them do unto you. Right? So these 3 little proverbs she used to say to me. And I built a business around that 6 years ago. And because all it meant to me was that who can I help? How do I care? And will they trust me? So every person that you lead asks themselves 3 questions. Every single person. Every customer that buys from you. Every interaction you have with another person. They will ask themselves these 3 questions. And you will ask yourself these 3 questions without even realising it. You will say, can this person help me? Does this person care about me? Can I trust this person? And if there's a yes, yes, and a yes, you will understand the start of emotional intelligence. Because if you can't help somebody, if you don't care for somebody and they can't trust you, do you think you've got a good handle on emotional intelligence? No? What do you got a good handle on?
Awareness.
No, yourself. That's all. That's all. If you cannot help somebody, if you don't care for people and they can't trust you, it's called self-centered. Not self-awareness, self-centered. And that's when ego plays a big role. So, social competence, which was the second square, it relates to my social awareness. How are others? Relationship management is how do I impact others? What am I doing? Here. What am I doing that has an impact on another person? That's social awareness right there. And it's also relationship management right there. Page 5. Any questions so far? Now, you're going to have to, if you want a question, throw it out at me because I'll ask a question. If you don't answer me, I'm just going to keep going because I'm assuming that you're keeping up. Is anybody got a question about anything I've said so far?
Yeah.
Go on.
So my question is to go wind it back to the personality types. If you look at someone on the more introverted scale,
Yes?
then how do those people who, like if you assume that the definition kind of is roughly that extroverts gain energy from personal experience and introverts need their own space to gain their energy.
I understand what you're saying. You're close. You're close.
So if
Clerics.
you're roughly there somewhere, how do the introverted people put forward more of themselves into their leadership? Or is it harder for an introvert to be a good leader?
No. One of my greatest leaders in my life was one of my Swedish managers, and his name was Sven Olle Dahlqvist. Right? He was such an incredible, beautiful man. He was phlegmatic, right? So this was his primary. He was phlegmatic. So he was an introvert. And his approach to me was very calm, cool and collected. But the thing that I learned from Esso was that he taught me how to ask questions. Because Esso used to say to me, I'm not the smartest man in the room. He said, there's a lot more smarter people in Sweden than me. He said, but if I surround myself with smart people, He said, they make me look good and I make them look good. So he used to say to me, tell me what you think. That was his number one question. Tell me what you think. And I'd give him my impression. And he'd go, okay, I can understand that. Have you thought of it like this? So it didn't mean that he wasn't a high energy person. He had a controlled energy. As an extrovert, you see how I work. I'm all over the place. I'm an energetic person. But I'm like that at home as well. I'm like that with the grandkids. I'm like that playing golf with Ian. Righto? But for me, that's just who I am. But I'm aware of my personality. Most people are not aware of their personality. Most people are not aware how they interact with people. They just react. And when I react with somebody, I'm actually below the line. I'm not above the line. So if I draw a line here, where's my... Have you done ATL, above the line, below the line thinking? No? Kind of? Again, I'm going to very briefly touch on this. This is called ATL, this is called BTL. This is above the line thinking and below the line thinking. How have I been talking to you guys tonight? Above the line. So when do I talk below the line? When I'm negative. Okay? I'm pointing the finger at someone. Exactly. How easy is it for us to go below the line? Your name, sorry? Rachel. How easy is it to go below the line, Rachel?
Can be pretty easy sometimes.
It's very easy all the time. When we're 5, by the time we're age 5, we hear the word no or a negative affirmation of no around 140,000 times by the time we're 5. By the time we're 5, we hear the word yes or a positive affirmation of yes 8,000 times. So the ratio is very, very weighted towards the negativity. And that ratio kind of continues through our life. So our default mechanism is what? Negative. Okay? So we are highly emotional people. We're one of we are the number one animal in the world, or number one creature in the world, that is driven by our emotions. And when our emotions are not the way that we want them to be, where do we sit? Below the line. So we think below the line, our attitudes below the line, our behaviours below the line, and our results are below the line. So when I was thinking at 5:30 this morning, what I'm going to be saying to you, what some of your responses may be posed on the questions, this is where I'm at. Now this was taught to me in 1992 in Sweden by a psychologist. And I never ever forgot it. He said, if you want to increase your relationship with your wife, if you want to increase your relationship with your kids, he said, always stay here. Now there's a few other things he taught me as well, but that one little diagram I never ever forgot. Does that make sense?
It's such a readjustment, but like.
Oh, well said, well said, well said. Why is it such a readjustment?
I guess like you mentioned earlier, as a child, you just always.
Is a default mechanism. We are who we are, and we are what we are because of what goes into our mind. To change who we are, to change where we are, we have to change what goes into our mind. Does that make sense? So what you're doing here tonight is you're changing some of the aspects of what's going into your mind. It's what's called input and conditioning. If you live in a negative environment, what do you think your results or your behaviour or your attitude or your thought process will be? Negative. So how can you have a positive emotional intelligence perspective on anything if this is where we live? Now, I ask the question of a lot of people. Now, emotional intelligence is a subject that not many people have been engrossed in, have covered, have studied. They just don't do it. I wish they did, but they don't. And when I say to somebody in the room, how many people are self-aware of who they are? Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, absolutely. Now, the most people who say that are the melancholics and the clerics. because they're very task focused, because they think there's a challenge coming. But all I want you to be aware of is that if I'm not self-aware of the people around me, then I'm not self-aware of who I am. Yeah? How many people are in a relationship? Everybody? Kind of? No? Kind of? Well, you've got a mirror. If you're in a relationship, you have to understand emotional intelligence. Now, if you don't, I would read up on this little book. I really would, because it's going to improve your relationship. Now, there's a lot of books I could suggest to you about increasing your relationships, but all relationships is understanding a level of emotional intelligence. How many people have had an argument in their relationship? Every single person, absolutely. No, you haven't had an argument? Congratulations. Are you in a relationship? Yes. Okay, that's the main thing. What makes you think you haven't, well, what's the belief that you haven't had an argument? Because I need to learn something from you.
We just talk about it.
Okay.
I wouldn't say we've had an argument.
But your wife or partner is an extrovert.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, because you're the introvert. Doesn't she or he, she? I have to be politically correct. Does she voice an opinion? Do you live together or is it just by phone? I congratulate you. If that's the relationship, I think it's brilliant. But you're a rarity. You are a rarity. You can increase and improve your relationship by reading this.
So you're going to say having an argument then?
No. Well, you don't appreciate what you have until something is gone. So having an argument with someone basically puts you in a position of something that's taken away from you. That closeness, that love, that intimacy, until it comes back again. So you move into a void. Now, I don't like a void because I'm a people person. I need to be around people. So that's why I don't argue with my wife anymore. And she'll say something else. Oh, that's absolutely correct. I'm an idiot. What was I thinking? What was I thinking? Then I'll go away and I'll go to the shed and I'll voice my opinion to the workshop tools, but I'm never going to voice my opinion to her again because I've never won an argument. In 40 years, I've never won an argument, so I don't argue anymore. So, emotional intelligence, IQ, and personality are all different. My emotional intelligence, my IQ, and my personality are all different. What is my IQ? What do you think my IQ is?
Are we guessing another?
No, I didn't even think of it like that. Well done, Tim. Lateral thinking. Can you describe my IQ or someone's IQ? Sorry, someone? It's intellect. Okay, so there's a little statement here that I've always loved. It says, intelligence is your ability to learn, and it's the same at the age of 15 as it is at the age of 50. So our ability to learn matures at the age of 15. Doesn't mean that we stop learning, but our ability to learn matures at the age of 15. Our emotional quotient never stops learning. So what makes a better leader? Someone with high EQ, emotional quotient, or someone with high IQ? EQ, why?
Because it's more understanding of people side of everything.
It's relationships.
Yeah.
It's relationships. Now we could look at some of the leaders in the world today. Let's look at a specific leader that has a great sweeping hairdo. What do you think he has? High IQ or high EQ?
Definitely doesn't have IQ.
So what do you think drives him? What do you think his personality is? Okay, there's a good one. I'll help you identify his personality. Is he an extrovert or an introvert? Extrovert. Okay. So he's on this side. Is he people or task focused? Task focused. Okay. So what do you think his personality is? What do you think his number one driver is?
Six.
So?
Six.
C, exactly right. And what do you think his second one is? Yeah, M. Yep, that one there. Exactly. D's his driver, and M's his melancholy. He's choleric melee. Okay, that's his personality. Is he self-aware? So when you look at someone who is completely self-aware, Mother Teresa, and someone who's completely unaware of their self-awareness, Donald Trump. It's a dichotomy of personalities, isn't it? Absolute dichotomy. He's such a demonstrative person. He's got to win. He doesn't care how many bodies he walks over. He has no understanding of emotional intelligence whatsoever because he pays someone for that. Now, in my past, in my history, I've had people who've had very similar personalities. And it's very uncomfortable working with them. Extremely uncomfortable. I remember one director said to me once, he came up to me and he said, I need you to change your personality. I said, I beg your pardon? Because I was the general manager of the organisation and he was the director. And he said, I need you to change your personality. I said, why? And he said, because people are not going to take you seriously. You have too much fun, you tell too many jokes, you're too frivolous and frivolous around the office. He said, you don't take life too seriously, so I need you to change your personality. And I said, well, that's not going to happen. He said, I beg your pardon? I said, well, you know, what you see is what you get. I'm not changing for anybody. If you don't like me, if you don't like the way I manage, you don't like the way I lead, you don't like the way I build customers, you don't like the revenue I generate for the organisation, get rid of me. I said, just let me know if it's today or tomorrow or the day after. And he turned around and walked away. So don't let people tell you who you are, because that's zero self-awareness. I knew who I was. I liked who I was. I like who I am today. And I could get someone like Ian to work for me and work with me because I had a great relationship with Ian. I never managed Ian for years. I used to say to Ian, what are you up to? Oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. I said, okay, see ya. Let me know when you finish. And that's how you lead. You lead by example. You make people feel safe. You help people. You care for people. And you trust them and vice versa. So IQ is just my level of intellect. All right? My EQ is my level of emotion. Have you seen the iceberg? Ever seen the iceberg syndrome? There's the water. 15%, 85%. Up here, IQ. Down here, EQ. So our EQ, our emotional quotient, sits below the surface until somebody throws a rock in the pond and disturbs the water. What are you doing that for? You shouldn't be throwing rocks in my pond. It's my pond. Everybody has a very similar level of emotional quotient in them. It's whether or not you're aware of it. Now, I'm highly aware of my EQ because I work on it every single day. And I coach and I train and I mentor on it every single day. So yeah, I'm probably a little bit higher than 85%. I'm not the smartest person in the room, I promise you that. But if I can surround myself with smart people, everybody looks good. So, emotional intelligence is an essential part of the whole person. Personality is the final piece of the puzzle. It's the stable style that defines us. Personality is the result of hardwired preferences, such as the inclination towards introversion or extroversion. Now, remember, extroversion, introversion, people-focused, task-focused. Just because I'm an extrovert doesn't mean that I want to lock myself away every now and then and just chill out and watch a DVD or a movie. I'll do that maybe, I don't know, once a month. I'll watch a movie. But then I'm out again. But my wife, she loves watching movies because that's her personality. So I'm in the shed, or I'm working on the car, or I'm going visiting people. I've got to do something, right? Now, emotional intelligence predicts performance. So if I have a good level, a good understanding of emotional intelligence, how can I predict somebody's performance? You remember what I said before about body language? I can look into somebody's eyes, especially if I'm working with them for a while. I can look into their eyes and I can tell straight away whether or not they're having a good day or a bad day. And this is at 7:30 in the morning. This is the moment they get out of the car. Because the eyes are the windows to your soul. And when you work with somebody for a long time, if you look at your partner, if you go home and you look at your partner and you walk in at a certain time or a certain, after something's happened in their life, and you look into them straight away, you know exactly that there's a problem, don't you? Especially us husbands. We know there's a problem before we get out of the car. Right? Or my wife can look into my eyes and she's got an uncanny ability because I play my cards pretty close. She'll walk in and she'll say, what's happened? What's going on? And I say, where did that come from? She says, so what did happen then? And I'm trying to defend myself, but she knows straight away that something is going on. And when you have that relationship with people that you work with, when you know that you can help them care and they trust you, you can look into their eyes, you know something's going on. And I'm going to say, I think we need to go and have a conversation. I used to have an open door policy, and anybody that wanted to come and have a conversation with me in my office was always there, and it didn't matter what time of the day it was. And they would come in and they said, can I close the door? Close the door. And nothing else happened. Then I'd figure out what was going on. I remember one girl, she came to my office and, well actually I invited her into my office because she was just having there was so much turmoil going on in the office. And I said to her, what's going on? And she said, I've got some personal issues going on in my life. And I said, but it's affecting everybody here at work. I said, the women don't want to talk to you. The women are complaining about you. Even the guys don't want to get too close to you in case you claw their eyes out. I said, so what's going on? And she was telling me all these things. And I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. And I turned the computer screen around and it had seek.com. And I said, I think we need to find a new job. And she said, you can't do that. You can't sack me. I said, I'm not going to sack you. I said, you're going to leave. And you're going to leave within 30 days. And I'm going to help you find a new job. But a job that you're good at. A job that you want to go to. A job where it doesn't make you miserable. Because I don't want to have to work you out of the organisation and have 2 letters of discipline on your record. But I said, if that's what I've got to do, that's what I'm going to do. I said, I like you too much as a person to watch you sabotage yourself. So within 3 weeks, we found a new job and she left. And she still talks to me today. She still rings me. She still have a conversation. So as a leader, I knew that there was something going on. I knew that it was detrimental to have that person stay in the environment. Because one bad apple in the basket does what? It poisons the rest of the whole, it does. It rots the whole basket. But as a manager, as a leader, our responsibility is to move those apples out. Now sometimes it takes a long time to get rid of the apple. Yeah, I know, it takes a long time sometimes. But only way that you can do it, all right? The only way that you can do it, and I've written, is add value. That is the only thing a leader can do. Because if you're not adding value, what are you doing? What's the opposite of giving? Taking. So I'm taking value from them. If I don't add value to Aaron and Scott, I'm taking value. I'm down here. We are all like a car battery. We have a positive and negative charge. We can't sit in the middle. There is no neutral. So I'm either adding value to you or I'm taking value from you. Does that make sense? I cannot sit on the line. This is the choice line. And I cannot sit on the line, and nobody can sit on the line. I say to people, how are you feeling today? Oh, I'm not sure. Oh, you're negative. Oh, I didn't say that. Yeah, you did. You're either positive or you're not. You're either optimistic or you're not. Now, I know for a fact that everybody in this room has worked with someone who's very negative. You can see them walking down the hallway and you're just trying to find a doorway to hide into because you know if they get close to you, they're going to suck all the energy out of you. Right? You never want to be around that person who is just going to drain every little last bit of human sense out of you because they're just going to vomit negativity all over you. Right? They walk into a room and everybody holds their breath. I always thought that was hilarious. Everybody held their breath when the manager walked in. You think, wow, he's got an impact in the room. Not a good one. You want to walk into a room and people say, oh, Marie's here. Thank God Marie's here. Now we can start. You're either adding value to people or you're taking value from people. Now, is this easy to do? No.
I'm just thinking, like, there's some often situations where you're talking about issues or problems, and it's hard to not sound negative when you're trying to address issues, fundamental structural issues or process issues.
100% correct.
And like, I was just like, how do you?
Okay. Ian can probably test to this. People used to come into my office and they said, Bernie, I've got a problem. I said, no, we don't. Yeah, I've got a problem. No, we don't. I'm pretty sure we've got a problem. No, we don't have a problem. I said, well, okay, if we don't have a problem, what have we got? So we've got an opportunity. And the moment I go from problem to opportunity, the psychology in your head changes. And it moves from below the line to above the line. Because if I engage in the negativity of the problem, what am I enforcing? The negativity, right? If I move it immediately to an opportunity, what am I enforcing? Growth. That's all I'm looking for now. If it's an opportunity, what's the outcome if we fix this? Positive. And that's where you've got to get people thinking immediately. So I totally understand. And I've been there more times than most people. But the whole point is that the moment you move it from that negativity problem to it's an opportunity, all we've got to do is figure out what it is. And if we fix it, what's the outcome? You're in a maintenance environment, aren't you? Or operation. You'll come across negativity on a regular basis. All the time. What I've just said there, does that make sense to you? Definitely. Okay? Because now if you can use that one little nugget and if you can solve an issue quicker, right, you're back in production much faster. Production engineer, production manager somewhere, same thing. You'll come across production issues every single day. I was in production as a production manager for many years. And again, my mentor used to say to me that we don't have problems. I don't have a problem in my life. I promise you, I have zero problems. My wife's got a few. I have zero problems. Because that's just how I think.
Is there not a component of the healthcare trust within someone who you work with or who works for you that is sitting with that person and their problem for some time? You know what I mean about creating a space where we're talking to each other. You come to me with your problem and I say, okay, tell me about your problem.
Yep.
Is that...
Give me the scenario. Let's say I'm the boss and you bring me a problem. Do you want me to stay above the line or below the line? Give me a real life scenario. Or I'll tell you, you be the boss. Okay, your name, sorry again? Ash. Ash, listen, we've got a real problem and I don't know how to fix it. ABC's just killed TYG and now PQS is out, sleeping with Huey, Louie and Dewey.
Yep.
What are we going to do?
You told me your problem.
Okay.
So that was my question. So most problems take a lot longer than that to explain.
Exactly.
And in that 5, 10, 20 minutes that it takes you to solve your problem.
Mm.
I think, well, my opinion has always been you need to sit with that person's problem, and that's the empathy that you bring.
It is. It is. It is. I want you to write down this one little adage. Great leaders ask great questions. You don't have to solve the problem. Righto? As a leader, don't think that you have to solve every single problem. Now remember what I said before, I'm not the smartest man in the room. Right? And I'll always attest to the fact I don't want to be the smartest man in the room, but I'll ask more questions than anybody else in this room. And what that does, it allows the person with the issue, with the problem, to self-discover. All right? Remember the 3 E's? What were the 3 E's? Engage, encourage, and empower. Now, if I'm sitting with Ash and I'm asking questions of your issue, and you're starting to answer the questions, because that's what will happen. I'm never going to tell you the answer. I will never tell you the answer. I want you to discover the answer. Once you discover it, and I say, why don't you try that? Right? I've engaged you, I've encouraged you, and now I've empowered you. You're going to do the best job possible so you don't disappoint me, more than if I'd have told you the answer in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's why we don't have problems. We only have opportunities. And yes, I know in production, we have production issues, which can be mechanical, which can be third party. There's a gamut of issues. But when you're talking with people, all right, it's all about communication. It's all about whether or not you can help them, whether you care, and whether they trust you. And I'm going to ask a series of questions of everybody. My wife, she says to me, do you ask questions when you do these programs? And I said, yeah. She said, I bet you drive them crazy. And I said, well, I can't give them answers because they've got the issue, not me. But if I can peel the onion, you'll discover the answer much quicker than I can tell you the answer. So, the 5 levels, you've got a little diagram here. 5 levels of emotional intelligence. So you've got an emotional intelligence model here. Now the 5 levels of emotional intelligence are self-awareness, empathy, motivation, self-regulation or self-management, and people skills. Now in that diagram, if I'm self-aware, I have a level of consciousness of what I'm doing. Does that make sense? I know what I'm doing, and I know what the people around me are doing. But if I haven't got a level of self-awareness, I'm unconscious to my environment. I'm unconscious to my personality, to my strengths, to my weaknesses, and I'm unconscious to the people around me. I'm just going to react. So what's the opposite of reacting? Proact. Deliver. Okay? All of these types of things. But if I'm only going to react, then I'm staying below the line and I'm not consciously aware of my environment. Self-awareness, there are many, many ways you can understand and increase your level of self-awareness. I've been doing mine for almost 15 years, as I said. 5 things a day, because my mentor said to me, these are the 5 things you need to do every single day. Now, I'm fortunate enough that the 5 things I do help my private life and also help my business life. So it's a double-edged sword for me. I don't do things differently at home than I do at work. It's the one set of self-awareness program. The next thing I have is empathy. Now, what is empathy? And we could read through the book here, but what's empathy? What do you think empathy is? Putting yourself in someone else's shoes. So give me an example of putting yourself in someone else's shoes. Has anybody ever done it? Tell me.
When someone comes with an issue, with a strong opinion, trying to understand why that person formed that opinion, under what circumstance it is, and trying to make him understand the other side of it.
Yes. Yeah. Can I? Anybody want this? All good? Can I clear it? Okay. It's a great word, what you just said then. Opinion. What's an opinion?
One's perspective. One's perspective.
Okay, one's perspective. Some people call it opinion, or we can even call it a belief. Does an opinion need to be right or wrong? It's just an opinion. What starts arguments? Differences of opinion. Personalities, okay? Beliefs, which differ. Every time I ask you a question and you've answered me, have I said you were wrong at all tonight? I can't say you're wrong. It's just your opinion. Now, if your opinion differs from mine, I'm not going to tell you that your opinion differs from mine. I'm going to ask another question. Have you ever thought of it like this? No? Okay. What do you think would happen if we thought of it like this? I've got to peel the onion. As a leader, I can't tell people they're wrong. Because the moment I tell someone they're wrong, what happens? They disengage. They get emotionally distraught. So if I'm telling people that they're wrong, what do you think my level of emotional intelligence is? Low. Very, very low. So how many times have we had an argument over differing opinions? Most days. Most hours. Everyone has a differing opinion. But have you ever thought about, don't argue with the opinion, ask a question. Great leaders ask great questions. Emotional intelligence is understanding when you need to know that you have to ask another question instead of giving your opinion. When was the last time you, and I want you to actually think about this, when was the last time you gave your opinion which caused friction with the other person? And what was it, 5 o'clock? Yesterday? But it's really simple, isn't it? It's really easy. You go on.
You could say almost every time you give it.
Every time you give it. So if I give my opinion, you'll hear me say, do you mind if I share something with you? I've got to ask permission. Now if I ask permission and you say, yeah, okay, and I share that opinion, do you object? No, because you allowed me to share that with you. But if I say, Aaron, that's a crock of crap, where'd you get that idea from? I'll tell you what it is, and I blurt it out. How does Aaron feel now? Especially in front of his peers. A leader's never going to take value away from a person. A leader has to add value every single time. So as empathy, I've got to figure out what's going on with others. I've got to put myself in their shoes. Now, it's not sympathy. Sympathy is feeling sorry for somebody. Empathy is understanding their position. All right? And there's a big difference. And again, down there, I've got caring, helping, and trusting. Without empathy, we fail to connect with the 3 critical emotions needed to build relationships. Caring, helping, and trusting. Do you care for me? Can I trust you? Can you help me? And if any one of those is no, it's all off. Now, what do you think the number one, out of those 3 there, what do you think the number one issue is that breaks down relationships and breaks down emotional connections? No. Yes. The moment you stop caring, everything else goes out the window. Everything else goes out the window. You lose clients because they don't think you care. Have you ever been into a shopping centre and bought something and you've struggled through the negotiation and you've struggled through the aspect of buying whatever you're buying, and you walk in and you think, God, that was hard work. I'll never come back here again. Now, it's not got nothing to do with trust, but it's got everything to do with care. They just didn't care. Care's the number one reason why people either increase their clients, increase relationships, increase their visibility and credibility within your friends or in the market, or it's the number one reason why you don't. Care. I can help people, no problem. And people can trust me. But if I really don't care, I only get one shot. Any questions on that? With emotional intelligent leaders, they don't take things personally and they're able to forge ahead without getting their ego in the way. That's one of the great things about, especially transformational leaders. Now, that's a couple of modules away from you guys at the moment. But as a transformational leader, they're highly, highly self-aware all the time. They're consciously aware of everything that they're doing. As an emerging leader, as a future leader, you have to understand where you are today and what your next journey is going to look like. Now, you could walk away from here and think, well, that was fun. You could finish the program over the next 12 months and think, well, that was good fun. I learned a few things. But what do you do after? What's the next thing you do? When do you start putting it into practice? Straight away. You can't wait until the module's finished. You can't wait until the year's finished. You can't wait until I get my new BMW. Then I'll put it into practice. You can't wait till I get my new house or I get the new jet ski, whatever it is. Once I get that, I know I've made it. All right? When you learn a new skill, when you learn a new knowledge, you have to share it with somebody else. I love reading books. This book I love. And this is the brand new edition that's just come out after 25 years again. It's his second version. Now I read that, and not that one, but I've got another one dog-eared at home already. But when I learn it, when I read it, the next thing I've got to do is I've got to share what I've learnt with somebody. If I don't share it, I shouldn't read it. Because all I'm doing is internal ego building here. I know how to do this. I used to have a manager that I used to work with, and he used to have a process called Triple S. Now, I named it Triple S because it was always secret squirrel shit. He would not share anything. And he was the contracts manager, and when I first started there, I was the operations manager. So I had to go and negotiate with the clients. And I'd say, what's our pricing structure? I'm not telling you that. What? But I need this. I'm not telling you. If they want to know, they can ring me. Are you kidding me? I said, if you don't give it to me, I'm going to make one up. He said, you can't do that. I said, watch me. So I'd make it up. Seek forgiveness, not permission. But the whole point is that you've got to add value. If I'd go to a client and he'd say, what's the pricing structure? Oh, I can't tell you. My manager won't tell me. Oh, I don't think you can come back now. So the moment you stand up, the moment you wake up, the moment you pay attention to anything, you're in a leadership role. You're in a leadership position. And you have to take this seriously. Motivation. Now you don't have to answer me, but how many people are self-motivators in the room? Now, what do I mean? Go on, put your hand up. What do I mean by self-motivator? Can anybody give me an answer? What do you think a self-motivator is? The little why I do what I do. Why do you think a self-motivator is?
Who draws energy from, I guess, within.
Okay, yeah. Where does it come? What's the purpose of it, Bart? So if I draw energy from within, okay, people will say, well, we don't want that much energy burning. What am I doing it for? A goal, an outcome, a desire. So as a leader, do you think I've got a goal, an outcome, an end result that I'm working towards? Yeah? Every single day. So when I set the goal at 5:30 this morning to talk here tonight at 5 o'clock, I had a goal. So I was motivated at 5:30. So I'm making a few notes on my bedside table, and my wife says, will you get out of bed? I don't have to get out for another hour and a half. So I got out and I'm still writing notes. So I'm a self-motivator. Does that make sense? Because I'm always measuring my level of performance against a desired outcome. But what if I'm not a self-motivator? What if I'm a leader that just, oh, good morning, how are you? What do you want to do today? Oh, come and see me later, I've got to have coffee. Come and see me about 10, I'll make it 11. What about after lunch? Come see me then. How often do you think people are going to want to come and talk to you as a leader? They're not. Energy attracts energy. Okay? Negative energy attracts negative energy. So when that lady said to me, Bernie, you're making me exhausted because you've got so much high energy, it didn't worry me. It really didn't worry me because I'm not going to change for her because I've got a job to do. I've got something I've got to deliver to you so that you've got something to take away. Self-management is what I do. So as emotional intelligence, is it important to understand what I'm doing? Ash, you want to know? Yes? Tell me why. Is it important for me to know what I'm doing? Why?
Because so you can analyse how you feel about it.
And I can reflect on what I did after I've completed it. Self-reflection is a huge part of leadership. Right? Self-reflection is a huge part of leadership. So at the end of each day, at the end of each module, at the end of each week, whatever I'm doing, I will self-reflect on the impact I had. Did I add value to somebody? Could I have done it a little bit differently? Could I have responded in a different way when we were talking about a certain area of information? So I've got to self-reflect and self-manage what I'm doing and why I'm doing it.
With that self-reflection,
Yes, mate?
encourage people to use all their feedback.
All the time.
To self-reflect properly.
All the time. Feedback, and I have to be mindful here that I'm not going to run out of time. We've covered a lot of it. Feedback, how many of you have a performance evaluation meeting with your manager or you hold that with your subordinates? Yeah? What are they called? Ash, what's yours called? Performance review. Quarterly review. Anybody else? Balance scorecard. Oh, I love that one. That was so corporate 80s, it was unbelievable.
Not even really balanced.
I used to run a program we used to call feedback session. Monthly feedback session. And I used to ask 2 questions. The first question was, if Ash had come to me or Aaron, I'd say, okay, Aaron, what have I done for you in the last 30 days that has helped you achieve your goals? Now remember the first time, remember Jeff Schumacher, and Ian and I know Jeff Schumacher really, really well. And Jeff was my maintenance manager. And Jeff came in and I said to him, Jeff, what have I done in the last 30 days that has helped you achieve your goals? Well, he had a list of as long as your arm. And then he realised, he said, no, it's really not your responsibility. He said, but why'd you ask that question for? And I said, well, if I'm not adding value to you, how can you add value to your team? So that was the first question I asked him. The second question I asked him, what do you want me to do in the next 30 days that can add more value to you so you achieve your goals? So they were the 2 questions. And that was my feedback session. But then I used to get Jeff or Aaron or Ash to ask me those 2 questions. So Aaron would say, all right, Bernie, what have I done in the last 30 days that has helped you achieve your goals in the last 30 days? Now, I would never come down on anybody, but I'd say, you know where I want you to focus on this month? I want you to do this month. I want you to focus here. I think you've got a great opportunity. Because if I can motivate you, do you think I'm going to get a better result than hammering you like a nail all the time? So I would get that person to ask me those 2 questions. And that was the end of the feedback session. But remember, I wrote everything down. So when I came together in the next 30 days, I'd say, what have you achieved in the last 30 days? Now, what have I done to help you achieve? And he'd say, well, blah, blah, blah. And I'd say, what did you have to do in the last 30 days? And I'd say, how'd you go? Never really got it done. Well, tell me why. What happened? And I'm helping him through the process. Now, they will get to a stage where if they don't want me to help them, and they can't help, and they don't want help, I'm going to turn the computer screen around and go, seek.com. Time to look for a new job. Because I'm always going to help somebody achieve what they want in life. And this may not be the perfect job. Now, I'm not saying, remember, I'm old school. I could do that. And it's very, very hard to do that today. But you've got to encourage people. You've got to motivate people. You've got to inspire people. 2 things you can only do to another human being. You can't change them. You can influence them. You can't motivate them, but you can inspire them. They're the only two things you can do emotionally to another person. And as a leader, that's your responsibility. Excuse me. Ugh. Look away, look away. So the other thing is, I've given you some notes here on consciousness. I've given you some notes here on projection, resilience, adjustment and communication, which all come from the model. And I've given you some tips on self-awareness, on empathy, on motivation. 4 things that recognise emotional intelligence in a person. All right? And those 4 things are, you think about your reactions. You see situations that are challenged, you modify your emotions, and you can put yourself in other people's shoes. So they're the 4 things that you can recognise if you have a level of emotional intelligence. Now, a lot of people say, yeah, right, that I tick those boxes. And I say, well, how often? Every day? Every hour? Every minute? Every month? Every week? Because you've got to ask yourself, how often do I have these levels of emotional intelligence? And that's a hard question. Because this is not something that people ask you every single day. But you're on a journey. You're on a leadership journey. I wish I had 8 hours here with you guys. There's so much that I want to tell you. There is absolutely so much that I want to share with you. This is such a passion of mine. I honestly, I could talk for the next 24 hours and everybody would stay awake, I promise you. I'm writing a book at the moment called Unlocking the Leadership Gap. This man over here, this is the promise I make you today. I will get you, every single person here, I'll get you a copy of it when it's published at the end of the year. And I'll send it to you. I'll give it to Wayne and he can hand it out. You're going to have so much fun with this book on your journey. It is going to enlighten so much information around what you need to do. And yes, emotional intelligence is quite a big chapter in there. Because the leadership gap is the difference between how a person manages and why a person leads. And that's the gap. And the gap's getting bigger. It's not getting smaller. The gap's getting bigger. Now, in this last little one here, we've got 5 minutes left. And the model there is consciousness, projection, resilience, adjustment, communication, people skills, self-awareness, empathy, motivation, self-regulation, ignorance, aloof, unconsciousness, apathy, and discouragement. If I was to ask you, what are the 10 things that you could do to increase your level of emotional intelligence at work? What would it be? What would some of the answers be? Reflection. Self-reflection is a very, very good way of increasing your level of emotional intelligence.
Engage with people.
Engage. Now, what type of engagement?
Positive.
Positive engagement, not just having a conversation. If I engage with you, there has to be an expectation of outcome. I set an expectation here tonight before I walked in. All right? But I do that for every single meeting I go to. Every single person I sit with, I have a level of expectation as to what I want them to walk away with. Does that make sense? When you engage with somebody, it has to be deliberate. It has to be intentional. And if you're deliberate, if you're intentional about your level of engagement, you will add value. Oh, I'm trying to rub it out. You will add value. Does that make sense? Technology, I love it. But if you're not intentional, it's just going to be a conversation. And there is no mindset, mind awareness, level of self-awareness is what the outcome of the conversation. What's something else that you do to increase your level of self-awareness at work?
Deep listening.
Listening is a great one. Right? There's another one I've told you a number of times tonight. Great leaders ask great questions. Ask questions of people. All right? If we don't ask questions, how do we find out what's going on behind closed doors? How do we find out what's going on with that individual? Remember, what happens is we judge people on their actions, but we judge ourselves by our intentions. So we could have the greatest intent. Oh, I'm going to go and talk to Ash today. He just didn't look all that well this morning, so I'm going to have a conversation with him. At the end of the day, someone says, oh, how'd you go with Ash? Oh, pretty good. He's all right. I saw him in the hallway earlier. Because we have our greatest intention, and if the intention's there, we go, oh, basically did it. Right? Oh, basically did it. It must be okay then. If you've got the intention to talk to somebody, drop everything else. There's a big thing in the world today around mental health, right? And it's huge. It's absolutely huge. This is what we're talking about: emotional intelligence. It's all about mental health. It's all about helping, caring, and trusting. It's all about how we communicate, why we communicate. What's something else we can do at work to increase our level of self-awareness? Feedback is huge. Feedback is enormous. Now, why don't managers, and I say managers, why don't managers like feedback?
Ego.
Well, ego's one thing. What's the next thing? They don't want to lose control. But what's the third thing? It's associated with ego.
It's like they make it, it's like as if you, like they don't have all the answers, like they're not the most knowledgeable. So
Yeah.
they look stupid.
Yeah, they don't want to look stupid.
Yeah.
Okay. When you've got this person that doesn't seek feedback, doesn't ask for feedback, they don't want to be proven wrong. They don't want to look less of importance to their subordinates, and they don't want to appear vulnerable. So they're never going to say, no, that's not right. I'll tell you what's right. And they'll defend it, and they'll use that opinion. All right? A great leader, a transformational leader, seeks feedback. And that's a fantastic, that one there, most managers will not do. They will not seek feedback because it's so uncomfortable. Give me one more before we wrap it up tonight. Stay above the line. Stay above the line. It's easy for me to stay above the line today. It's extremely easy for me to stay above the line. But when I go below the line, it's so uncomfortable. The bells go off, the red flags go off. It's just unbelievably uncomfortable. So when I get up and I have a conversation, I'm hearing what I'm saying. I'm looking at the reactions, the emotions, the body language, righto? Because that's my role, that's my responsibility. I don't want to be the negative part of the battery. I need to have that positive charge with people. My adage is I have a positive influence in people's lives. I take that very seriously. Absolutely so seriously. And I want to add value to leaders who can multiply value to many. So in your journey of leadership, you have a responsibility. You have a responsibility to build more leaders. You have a responsibility to add value to everyone you meet. And you have a responsibility to stay above the line and communicate in a very positive way. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.